So somewhere deep in Meta's server architecture, there is a mathematical model, right?
Yeah, a highly complex one.
Right. And this model, it knows exactly how many milliseconds it takes for you to feel insecure about your reflection.
Wow. But like that, it sounds intense.
It does. And, last night, according to our source material today, a media buyer used that exact mathematical model to sell a fat freezing treatment.
I mean, it sounds incredibly dystopian when you frame it that way.
Totally.
But honestly, that is the absolute ground level reality of high level performance marketing today.
Yeah.
We're moving far, far beyond the era of just, putting a picture of a product on the internet and hoping someone buys it.
Right, like the old billboard method.
Exactly. We are officially in the era of behavioral engineering.
Well, welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today, we are completely dismantling the illusion of your social media timeline.
Which is long overdue, I think. Seriously. We've got our hands on a really fascinating piece of insider source material today. It's titled The Architecture of Attention, Mastering Creative Strategy.
It's essentially a field journal, really.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. It's written by a highly specialized media buyer, and they basically documented a late night session.
A very long late night session.
Yeah, where they and their younger brother spent, almost 2 entire hours building a single digital advertisement, just one.
Right. And what's crucial here, and we really need to emphasize this, is that they weren't spending 2 hours because they were unfamiliar with the editing software.
No, not at all.
They were spending 2 hours because they were engaging in probabilistic behavioral cohort modeling.
Which is a mouthful.
It is. And even if they didn't explicitly call it that in the moment, they were literally mapping out human psychology frame by frame to feed an algorithm.
Right. And we're going to get into the actual nitty-gritty mechanics of how they did that.
Oh, yeah. The microsurgery of it all. Exactly. But first, let's address the elephant in the room. And source material tackles this right out of the gate.
The boost button.
Yes. There is this persistent, really kind of naive perception among casual observers and honestly among a whole lot of business owners too.
So many business owners.
Right. That running digital ads is just a matter of clicking that frictionless little boost button.
Yeah, you just pick a nice photo, write a caption, and boom.
You throw some budget at a post and the machine somehow magically finds your customers.
Which is mathematically and practically an absolute fantasy.
Completely. And look, I want to pause here for a second because I know who is listening to this right now.
Right.
If you're listening to this, maybe you're actually putting together video for your own YouTube channel today.
Right. Highly likely.
Maybe you are a Meta advertiser yourself or a Google Ads specialist, and you're planning to use this very audio track right now as the background for your own advertising to show potential clients that you know exactly what you're doing.
Which, by the way, is a brilliant strategy.
It really is. Because what we're breaking down today is the exact architecture you need to explain to those clients.
Exactly. You need to explain to them why the boost button is essentially just a tax on people who don't understand how the ad auction actually works.
A tax. I love that phrasing. Explain that a bit more.
Well, when you just boost a post, you're treating the digital ecosystem like it's a deterministic environment.
Like it's static.
Right. You're basically saying, here is my flyer, please show it to people.
Yeah.
But you aren't feeding the machine learning model any meaningful pixel data.
You're not giving it the fuel it needs.
No, you aren't establishing a high estimated action rate, or ER.
Okay, let's unpack that term. Estimated action rate.
Sure.
For the listener out there, especially our ad specialists who are managing their own campaigns or really studying this space, explain how the auction actually penalizes that static flyer approach.
So the Meta ad auction, it doesn't just award ad placement to whoever has the biggest budget. It doesn't just go to the highest bidder.
Which is a huge misconception.
It's massive. The algorithm actually uses a formula. It's called effective cost per mil, or ECPM.
Mil being the Latin for 1,000, so per 1,000 impressions.
Exactly, per 1,000 views. So the formula is your bid multiplied by the estimated action rate plus user value.
Okay, bid times EAR plus user value.
Right. And user value is essentially how much the user actually enjoys your ad.
Like, are they watching it or are they hiding it? Are they scrolling past it instantly?
Yes, exactly. And the boost button approach, it completely ignores those second two variables.
It relies entirely on the cash.
Yes, you are relying entirely on your financial bid. And because your static flyer doesn't engage the user dynamically, your user value just drops.
Because it's boring.
Right. And because you haven't engineered a behavioral trap, your estimated action rate drops.
So the formula works against you.
Severely. Therefore, your ad becomes incredibly expensive to show, and eventually the algorithm just chokes it out entirely.
It's like throwing spaghetti at a wall, but the wall is actively rejecting the spaghetti.
That's a great way to put it. You're just donating your budget to Meta at that point.
So going back to the source text, the 2 hours this media buyer spent on a single asset with his brother, it wasn't about aesthetics.
Not at all. It wasn't about making it look pretty.
It was like a watchmaker assembling tiny gears. It was about engineering a high user value and a high estimated action rate to basically game that ECPM formula.
Precisely. They are building a highly tuned tool designed to capture a very specific behavioral sequence.
Which brings us to the next massive point.
Yes, which the source makes clear. And I think this is honestly the most profound claim in modern advertising right now.
Play it on us.
Creative bias, the targeting.
Man, creative is the targeting. I want to really dig into that because, for years, the absolute gold standard of media buying was back-end targeting.
Oh, yeah. The good old days of manual inputs.
Right. You went into the ad manager and you built your deterministic fences. You manually dictated the audience.
You'd go in and say, I want to target women aged 25 to 40.
Who live in this specific zip code and who have an affinity for, I don't know, yoga and organic food.
Exactly. You told the machine exactly who to look for based on their declared interests.
But that era is gone.
It effectively died with the iOS 14.5 privacy updates.
Apple really flipped the table on that one.
They did, and that forced a subsequent massive shift in how algorithms process data. The platform just lost the ability to track users deterministically across the web in the way it used to.
They couldn't follow you around from site to site as easily.
Right, so Meta had to pivot. They had to move to probabilistic modeling.
Which means what exactly in practice?
It means the algorithm doesn't have those neat little demographic boxes anymore. Instead, it relies on real-time behavior.
It studies behavior. The source text puts that so plainly.
It's watching everything you do.
It's watching what stops your scroll.
Yeah.
It's measuring what specific emotion keeps you watching for 3 seconds. It's tracking what visual triggers an action.
It's not asking who you are, it's watching what you do.
And we really need to think about the extreme granularity of that observation.
It's microscopic.
Imagine you're the listener right now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're holding your phone, you're scrolling. Your thumb is in this continuous, almost subconscious loop.
Swiping, swiping, swiping.
The algorithm is actually measuring the latency of that thumb.
Yes. The micro pauses.
If your thumb pauses on an ad for like 0.8 seconds before you keep scrolling, you didn't click, you didn't like, you didn't comment.
But that micro pause is a massive, massive data point.
Really? Just less than a second.
Absolutely. The machine registers that the visual stimulus on the screen resonated with your subconscious just enough to disrupt your motor function.
Wow. It disrupted your physical rhythm.
Yes. So the video itself becomes a homing beacon. It's sending telemetry straight back to Meta's servers.
It's basically saying, hey, the person who just micropaused in this specific frame has a certain behavioral profile.
Now go find a million more people whose thumb latency matches this exact same pattern.
That is what?
It's brilliant. So you don't target busy parents in the back end anymore.
Because the machine doesn't necessarily know who is a busy parent anyway.
Right. Instead, you create a video that perfectly encapsulates, say, the chaotic energy of a messy kitchen at 6 a.m.
Ah. And that video naturally stops the scroll of an actual busy parent.
Exactly. The algorithm recognizes the high retention rate from that specific unidentified cohort, and it automatically adjusts its delivery to just find more people who react the same way.
The creative does the heavy lifting of audience segmentation.
Yes. Creative is the targeting.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here and push back on that a bit.
Go for it.
Because if the algorithm only cares about raw watch time and scroll stopping power, couldn't I just, game the system?
How do you mean?
Well, let's take the fat freezing treatment from the source text. If I'm selling that, why wouldn't I just start my ad with like a shocking dash cam video of a car crash or someone falling off a ladder?
The classic bait and switch.
Right. That will absolutely stop the scroll. That will definitely get me 3 seconds of watch time. Won't the algorithm reward that?
It will. It will absolutely reward it for about an hour.
And then what?
And then your campaign will completely and utterly collapse.
Why? A second is a second, isn't it?
Because you're confusing cheap retention with relevant retention.
Okay, explain the difference. How does the machine even know the difference?
Because of the post-click experience, and specifically the conversion API.
Ah, the feedback loop.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes. The car crash gets you a high scroll stop metric, but what happens at second 4?
The user realizes it's an ad for fat freezing.
Right. They experience massive cognitive dissonance, they feel tricked,
They're probably annoyed.
highly annoyed.
Yeah.
So not only do they swipe away really quickly, which drops your overall retention graph for the full video, but they might actively flag the ad.
Or hide it, which hurts that user value score we talked about.
Exactly. And more importantly, they definitely don't click through to your landing page, and they definitely don't book a consultation.
Right. So the conversion API sends a signal back to the algorithm saying, hey, 0 purchases over here.
Precisely. The algorithm is smart enough to realize that the watch time was hollow. It was a false positive.
So your homing beacon was basically calling out to the wrong demographic.
You told the algorithm to go find people who like watching car crashes, not people who actually want to buy body sculpting.
You polluted your own data pool.
You poisoned it.
Yeah.
This is exactly why the source text emphasizes that you have to engineer relevant emotion.
The hook has to actually tie into the product.
It has to be inextricably linked to the product's ultimate solution. And that brings us perfectly to how they actually built this specific fat freezing ad.
Yeah, let's dive into the empathy engine part of this.
Because they definitely didn't use a car crash.
No.
Oh?
Let's look at the actual case study from the text.
Yeah.
They're selling this body sculpting service for a clinic, right?
Right. Fat freezing.
Now, if I'm a novice marketer, or even a lazy one, my instinct is feature-based selling.
Of course. Look at our shiny new machine.
Exactly. I'm going to show the machine. I'm going to talk about the cooling technology, the fact that it hits negative 10 degrees, the speed of the appointment.
You're selling the physics of the product.
Right. I'm selling the specs.
Which is completely logical.
Yeah.
But it is entirely ineffective for probabilistic targeting.
Why is that?
Because people do not buy features. Honestly, they don't even really buy benefits.
What do they buy?
They buy state changes.
State changes. Okay, break that down.
They buy the transition from a negative internal state to a positive internal state. The media buyers in our source material, they completely bypass the machine entirely.
They didn't show the clinic or the tech?
No, they sat down at like midnight and asked, what is the actual raw psychological state of our target customer?
And the answers they came up with in the text are just, honestly, they're brutal.
They're incredibly vulnerable.
The text says, maybe she's a mom who lost confidence after pregnancy. Maybe she avoids mirrors. Maybe she's tired of trying diets that never work.
Maybe she just wants to feel comfortable in her own clothes again.
Yeah. Think about the last thing you bought online, right? Did you buy the physical item, or did you buy the feeling you thought it would give you?
Exactly. Let's analyze that one specific phrase. Avoiding mirrors.
That's a heavy one.
It is.
Yep.
It's a hyper-specific behavioral reality. If your ad leads with the clinical specs of a fat freezing machine, a user scrolling past will process that with their logical cortex.
They'll evaluate it logically.
Right. They will think, I don't have the money for that right now, or that looks kind of like a scam, and they swipe.
The friction is too high.
But if your ad visually and audibly triggers the visceral memory of avoiding a mirror, you bypass the logical cortex entirely.
You hit the amygdala.
Yes. You're initiating an immediate physiological response.
You're triggering an existing pain point.
And once that pain point is activated, the user is locked in. The text summarizes this so beautifully. People don't buy treatments, they buy confidence.
It's an empathy engine.
Yeah.
But okay, let's talk practically. Because it's one thing to have that empathy, right? How do you actually inject that abstract concept into a video file?
That is the million-dollar question.
You can write avoiding mirrors on a whiteboard all day long, but how does that translate into the 2 hours of late night editing they talked about?
This is where we get into the microsurgery.
Right, because the source gets incredibly granular here. They are literally talking about shortening scenes by milliseconds.
Which sounds absurd until you understand cognitive load theory.
Okay, let's unpack this. Cognitive load theory. Teach us.
So in a high-velocity feed like Instagram or YouTube Shorts, your brain is processing dozens of separate stimuli per second.
It's just a fire hose of information.
Exactly. The media buyer's job is to manage the viewer's cognitive load so perfectly that they never, ever experience friction.
Per friction being the enemy of retention.
As always, the source mentions they were constantly testing different pacing. They were adjusting where the text was placed on the screen, rewriting the voiceovers to match.
But why does a millisecond matter? Really? A millisecond?
Because a single millisecond of dead air or confusion breaks the dopamine loop.
Okay, map that out for me. What actually happens in the brain during a badly edited transition? Let's say a transition is off by like 200 milliseconds.
Okay, think about the saccadic movements of the human eye.
Saccadic meaning the rapid darting motions, right?
Right. When you're watching a video on a phone, your eye isn't still. It's constantly darting around looking for the next piece of salient information.
It's hunting.
It's hunting. So if a scene transitions and the new visual focal point doesn't immediately align with where the eye was already looking on the previous frame.
The brain has to catch up.
Yes, the brain has to spend a fraction of a second physically reorienting itself.
It's a micro frustration.
Exactly. And if during that exact micro frustration, the voiceover starts saying something that doesn't perfectly match the text written on the screen, you introduce massive cognitive dissonance.
So the brain is saying, wait, I'm reading the word diets, but hearing the word confidence, and I'm trying to look at a visual of a mirror, and my eye was just looking at the top left corner, but now the subject is in the bottom right.
Right? It's simply too much work. The cognitive load suddenly exceeds the perceived value of the content.
And boom, the brain subconsciously signals boredom or confusion.
And the thumb swipes and all of that entire process of rejection happens in maybe 400 milliseconds.
Wow. So when the source says they are building emotion frame by frame, they are quite literally syncing the visual text, the audio wave, and the focal point of the image.
Yes, to ensure the brain processes the emotion of avoiding mirrors with absolutely zero friction.
It's almost like they are building this perfectly smooth, lubricated slide. And if there is even a millimeter of a bump, the user falls off.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. It's a slide. If the pacing is too fast, the user gets overwhelmed, they fall off, they swipe.
And if it's too slow.
The dopamine hit fades, they get bored, they fall off, they swipe.
So those 2 whole hours spent on this single, maybe 30-second ad, they were largely devoted to just finding that razor-thin frequency of perfect cognitive flow.
That's the reality of the job. And honestly, it ties right back into why this audio is so perfect for an ad specialist to use.
Right, because if you're an ad specialist pitching a client, you need them to understand that you aren't just slapping text on a video.
You're performing digital surgery, and that takes time and expertise and testing.
Testing. Let's talk about that. Because let's be honest, they don't hit that perfect frequency on the first try, do they?
Almost never.
And the source doesn't pretend they do. They get into what we can call the crucible of refinement, the frustrating reality that first ideas usually fail.
It is an incredibly humbling profession.
I can imagine.
You can have a brilliant psychological insight like the mirror concept, which is genius,
Right.
but the execution might be totally flawed. The author notes that some versions of the ad they built felt too salesy, while others completely lacked emotional tension.
I want to stick on that tension for a second, because that's a tightrope. Too salesy versus lacking emotional tension.
It's the hardest balance to strike.
Where is the line? Because, if I watch a video and within 2 seconds, a voice is literally shouting at me, get 50% off fat freezing today.
Yeah.
My ad blindness kicks in instantly.
Oh yeah, your defense mechanisms activate.
Right. My brain instantly categorizes it as a threat to my wallet and I swipe.
Exactly. But the inverse of that is just as dangerous, if not more so.
How so?
Well, imagine you spend 30 seconds painting this beautiful, cinematic, highly empathetic picture of a mother struggling with her post-pregnancy body.
Okay.
But you never introduce a mechanism for change. You never introduce the tension of a solution.
It just becomes a sad documentary.
Exactly. The user watches it, they think, wow, that's incredibly relatable and deeply depressing, and then what do?
They swipe away to look at a meme to feel better.
Yes. They seek dopamine elsewhere to cure the sadness you just induced.
So how do you find the middle ground? How do you transition from empathy to the sale without triggering the defense mechanism?
Through relentless Bayesian iteration.
Iteration, meaning you don't just guess.
You aren't just guessing in a vacuum. You are deploying variations into the live ad auction and letting the algorithm give you real-time feedback.
So you launch a version where the product is introduced at second 5, and maybe another where it's introduced at second 12.
Precisely. And then you look at the drop-off graphs in the back end.
The retention curve.
Right. If everyone leaves exactly at second 5 on the first video, what does that tell you?
It tells you the transition from empathy to solution
Yeah.
was way too abrasive.
And we're too salesy. So you iterate, you soften the transition, you change the vocabulary, you push the pitch back to second 8.
The source actually says small creative changes completely dictate ad performance. Sometimes the hook sounds weak, sometimes the creative looks good, but still just doesn't feel right.
It's entirely intuition backed by brutal data.
This is really the death of ego, isn't it?
Oh, completely.
You could spend an hour perfectly tracking text to a video, rendering it, uploading it, feeling so proud of it, and the market tells you within 20 minutes that it's absolute garbage.
It is the ultimate meritocracy. The algorithm doesn't care about your feelings.
It doesn't care how hard you worked on that transition.
Not even a little bit. It only cares about the behavioral geometry of the user's reaction. And this is exactly where most amateur advertisers fail.
They quit too early.
Right. They make one video, they hit the boost button, it fails, and they conclude, oh, well, Facebook ads just don't work for my business.
When the reality is, their first draft just didn't survive the cognitive load test.
They didn't refine the homing beacon.
Exactly. As the author states, most businesses focus only on targeting. They assume they just haven't found the right demographic yet.
You're blaming the audience.
Right. They don't realize that the creative is the targeting, and their creative is a blunt instrument in what needs to be a surgical environment.
It's like trying to do brain surgery with a hammer.
Okay, so this brings us to a massive philosophical question. And I'm going to push you hard on this one, because the author brings it up to defend their profession, and I think it's controversial.
I know exactly where you're going with this. Let's hear it.
We've just spent the last 20, 30 minutes talking about mapping human pain. We're talking about identifying the specific raw insecurity of a mother avoiding a mirror.
Yeah.
And we're talking about deploying microsurgical editing techniques to intentionally bypass her logical brain and trigger her amygdala.
Right.
All so we can sell her a body sculpting treatment.
Yes.
How is that not the absolute textbook definition of manipulation?
I hear you.
I mean, you are engineering insecurity for profit. So a lot of people, that sounds like psychological warfare.
It's a highly valid criticism.
But the author explicitly writes in the source, great advertising is not manipulation. It's understanding humans deeply enough to communicate the right message in the right way.
And I agree with them.
Defend that, because to someone listening, that's going to sound like a very convenient, self-serving rationalization from someone who literally makes a living poking bruises.
Well, the line between marketing and manipulation is definitely thinner than most media buyers want to admit.
Okay, at least we agree on that.
But the defense lies in the origin of the pain and the efficacy of the solution.
The origin of the pain. What do you
I
mean?
mean, manipulation implies deception. It implies fabricating a problem that didn't previously exist or exploiting a vulnerability to sell a snake oil solution that provides no real value.
It's creating a false need, like making someone worry about something they never cared about before.
Exactly. If I use these high-level techniques to convince a perfectly healthy, incredibly confident teenager that they have some microscopic physical flaw that they absolutely must fix with my expensive cream,
That is manipulation.
it is entirely unethical. It's predatory.
Right.
But let's look at the specific cohort the source was targeting. A mother who has undergone a massive physiological trauma. Right. She is already avoiding the mirror. The advertiser didn't create that insecurity.
The bruise is already there.
Exactly. The bruise is there. She is actively suffering from a loss of bodily autonomy and a loss of confidence.
So you're saying the ad is just a mirror? No pun intended.
It's an intercept. The media buyer is intercepting an existing painful internal narrative. Now, if the fat freezing treatment is a total scam, then yes, it's still manipulation.
Because you're exploiting the pain for a useless solution.
Right. But if the clinic is reputable and the treatment genuinely provides the physical catalyst she needs to kickstart her confidence and feel comfortable in her clothes again, then reaching her effectively isn't warfare.
It's a service.
It is. You are using high-level cognitive engineering to cut through the massive noise of the internet and say, we see the exact pain you are in and we have a verified solution for it.
The author says, in today's world, attention is earned, not given.
Which is the ultimate reality check for any brand today.
I suppose it is. The consumer has infinite choices. They have millions of pieces of content, entertainment, news, family updates, all waiting for them in that same feed.
Infinite scroll, infinite distraction.
Right. So if your solution is going to reach that mother who needs it, it has to be more perfectly crafted than the TikTok dance video right below it.
That's the crux of the entire thing. The microsurgery, the millisecond edits, the agonizing over the voiceover pacing. None of that is done to trick the viewer.
It's done to reduce friction.
It is done to respect the user's highly fractured attention span. If you have a truly life-changing service, but you present it in a clunky, boring, static flyer...
You're doing a disservice to the consumer who needs it.
Exactly. The mechanics must be invisible so the empathy can take center stage. When the ad is perfect, the viewer doesn't see the editing.
They just feel seen.
That's exactly it.
So you build this complex, algorithm-feeding behavioral machine, and you basically paint it to look like pure empathy.
It's a stunning intersection of cold math and raw humanity.
It really is. And it completely redefines what it means to be a media buyer today.
It's not just uploading photos anymore.
No. You have to be half data scientist, analyzing eCPM and conversion APIs, and half behavioral psychologist, understanding the deep, unspoken anxieties of your target market.
Which is exactly why the 2-hour late night session documented in our source material is so vital to understand. They weren't just making a video, they were architecting attention.
And if you are that ad specialist we talked about earlier, putting this on your YouTube channel, this is exactly the kind of architecture you are offering to your clients.
You're offering them relevancy in a feed that wants to ignore them.
Exactly. Well, we've covered incredible ground in this deep dive.
We really have.
We started by completely dismantling the myth of the static boost button, and we explored the harsh mathematical reality of the meta ad auction.
The eCPM formula.
Right. We unpacked the massive paradigm shift of probabilistic targeting, where the creative itself acts as a homing beacon to map out human desire.
Creative is the targeting.
Yes. We looked at the raw psychology of the empathy engine, identifying deep-seated pain points like mere avoidance to bypass logical friction.
Bypassing the logical cortex.
And then we zoomed all the way in on the rigorous millisecond by millisecond microsurgery required to keep a user's cognitive load perfectly balanced.
It is a relentlessly demanding ecosystem, for sure.
It is.
But the ultimate takeaway here should be a newfound respect for the digital landscape.
How so?
Well, the feed isn't random. It is highly, highly intentional. Every single transition, every specific word, and every paused frame is a data point. It's all feeding a much larger understanding of human behavior.
It's fascinating. So we want to leave you with something to consider the next time you open up your phone.
Think about this next time you scroll.
Exactly. The next time you're scrolling and you find yourself suddenly transfixed by a video you did not ask to see. A video that somehow articulates a frustration or a desire you haven't even spoken out loud.
Don't just blindly swipe away.
Right. Take a second. Stop and look at the architecture of what you're watching.
Look for the seams.
Ask yourself, what specific internal state did they map out for you? And how many precise milliseconds did it take for them to earn your attention?